Another season on the Scottish Football Social Club and Premier Sports, live on YouTube once again. So get your questions in. The more controversial, the better. And if any of them are a sly dig at Michael Stewart, then that's great news, because there's even more chance we'll put them on screen or read them out. But season 2, Michael, apologies, same old jokes. The old days are the best days. And as you can see, Michael's with us, and another stalwart of the show, Alan Hutton, into. Alan, you didn't miss us for 1 second this summer, did you?
No, I didn't actually. Look, it's great to be back, and I'm thankful that we've got season 2, but needed that summer holiday, was excellent, so didn't miss you one bit. Sorry to say.
I bet you did.
Do you honestly think when he's sunning it in Vietnam, he was thinking about us for a split second?
Well, I did when you used to text me about games that was going on.
The pictures looked fabulous, by the way. It was a fantastic summer holiday. What about you, Michael? They say what absence makes the heart grow fonder and all that. Is it not applicable here?
That's when you talk about family, Darrell, and you two are certainly not that close. No.
After a season, I thought you're better than that. Anyway, right, come on, let's press on. Really pleased to say we've got new sponsors this season. The Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you in association with SBK and Premier Sports. SBK, a betting app that cuts out the nonsense, just straight up sports betting for folk who actually care about the game, proper odds, no gimmicks, and of course we care big time about the game, so hopefully it's going to be a great fit for the season ahead. We are off and running, 45 minutes or so of chat and all the football highlights to come as well right throughout this season, and we have to keep this moving because waiting in the wings. Really pleased to say that the new Motherwell manager, Jens Berthel Askou, is ready to speak to us, so let's bring him in right now. Jens, delighted to see you. I think you had a couple of Wi-Fi problems a minute ago. I was getting nervous, but you're in now. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us tonight, because I know it's been a busy season already for you. So much transfer work to be done, and some big games in the Cup and then in the league as well. But how is Scotland treating you so far? How's life?
It's been really good, and I've heard a lot about the Scottish weather, and I haven't hardly had any days with rain over here so far. But today it was very windy, and they were playing double passes with themselves on the training pitch. So that's I had my first taste of the real Scottish weather, but so far it's been great. I'm really enjoying it. My family was here for a week as well and got a little taste of it and experienced the last couple of games. So the atmosphere at Fir Park before it all kicked off on Saturday. So it's been a great time so far.
The bad news is it's all downhill with the weather from here, let me tell you. Now, you never know. August can be lovely in Scotland, so fingers crossed. And it's your birthday month as well. I did my research on you just before I came in. 19th of August, 1982, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Lovely. See, that's 1982. It's a vintage year. I'm the 16th of August that year, so vintage. You're in good company.
Wow.
I'm 3 days older, Jens. Yeah. Can you believe it? Anyway, listen, enough of birthdays, enough of all that and the weather. Let's get into the football. Congratulations on the start of the season, and also excellent point against Rangers. You must have been delighted in particular, Jens, with the way the second half went in the match, if not the whole match.
Yeah, obviously things went our way in the second half, and we got more and more momentum, and the confidence grew throughout the game. I think it was the first half exactly as I expected, with us trying to come out with a lot of intensity, Rangers trying to do their best to get control of the game. And then some nervous moments for both teams where we just had to find ourselves in the first game of the league with a lot of expectations from us of what we wanted to try and do, but also obviously a lot of pressure and expectations on Rangers being favourites and being also with a new manager and a lot of new things trying to implement them at the same time. So I think there was probably a little bit more mistakes from our side that we wanted in the beginning, but it's part of the process and it's part of the journey. And I think we already after 20-25 minutes in the first half, we got a lot more grip of the game, and then kind of used the halftime well to recover and to come out strong in the second half.
Jens, you've seen a lot of Motherwell, haven't you? You've been really impressed. So in you come.
Well, we did the game against Morton, and that was the first time that I'd obviously seen the side since Jens had taken over, and I was very, very impressed with it. But I've got to be honest, a lot of people after that game were talking about, okay, well, that's fine, in Morton, but what's it going to be like first game of the season when you try to play like that against Rangers? Is it quite clear that regardless of who you're playing, this is your idea, this is your identity, and it's not going to change regardless of the teams that you're playing against?
I think if anything is an identity, then it's something that you do all the time, isn't it? Otherwise, it's just a game plan. So we try to implement a style that works in against all opponents. Obviously, we're going to be challenged extremely hard against the top teams like Rangers, and we're going to be challenged in some different ways, but also challenged a lot against St. Mirren, who's a very physical side, and I think they played a really, really good game against Celtic, even though they didn't have the ball that much, but the way they defended, and they have a physical presence and threat and a defensive discipline within the team that's really, really good. I thought it's going to be a massive test for us as well on Saturday, and that's why we're trying to build something that we know will challenge all teams if we do it at our highest level, and that we don't have to change up every week, because we know if we keep practicing what we do every day and every week, we will improve instead of getting mixing up game plans according to the opposition every time. We know there are different challenges for each opposition. But we also know that our dynamic playing style and our bravery on the ball, but also bravery without the ball in terms of trying to go up and play man-man in the high pressure against Rangers for most of the time, will be challenging for them, challenging for us, and developing for us and for our players and our team.
Jens, how happy are you that
Sorry, yeah.
I was going to say, how happy are you that it's come about so quickly, that they've been able to adapt to this? Because, as I said, we saw you against Morton very early in the Premier Sports Cup. Now the first game of the season against one of the top teams, and it seems like the team are fully bought in. They know exactly what they're trying to do, and they're executing it pretty well as well.
Yeah. No, I'm obviously extremely happy about that, and I'm also won't say surprised, but I'm very impressed with how fast they've adapted and how fast they've taken everything on board and how fast they've increased their bravery in what we're doing, because it's linked to mentality and personality and psychology, and these are some of the hardest things to change so fast, and I think they've been excellent from day one in terms of really buying into and wanting to do that. And then obviously it's also about us from the staff and the club around them, with the support of the fans, that we give them the opportunity to make mistakes along the way instead of striking on the mistakes. I think we've been very clear on striking on when we've not been brave enough or wanting the ball enough, because that's the biggest mistake we can make if we want to play like this. So, for example, today we didn't spend a second on the mistake that led to the corner. Because we know that's going to happen now and then. We also saw the reward Saturday when we succeed, and then it was more about how did we actually defend that corner that we weren't happy with.
Yeah, and I was just going to say there, just going on from what Michael said, it's not really a style of play that we've seen from Motherwell over the years. So they've obviously taken a lot of information on board. Is that just down to the hard work that you and your staff have been doing in terms of video meetings on the grass to get them into this situation where they're at the moment?
Yeah, of course, it takes time, and we're still not doing where we want to be. There's a lot of things we need to improve, especially our effectiveness going forward. And when we get these real transition situations, or the situations created, which are transition like when we break a high pressure, we need to be a lot more effective and sharp in our decision making and the execution in these situations. But obviously, there's a lot of work putting into it. I think the club has been taking some steps in that direction with the former manager. That's what I've heard from the club. when I had conversation with them before I was hired, and it's also what I've heard from the players, and I think that's helped. We haven't started from zero, but obviously we've taken the next steps in terms of developing a style of play that is based on trying to take the initiative on the ball and trying to be also very aggressive and intense in our pressure.
Yeah, Jens, we've got all the highlights for the match, so if you don't mind, we'll have a quick look while we're chatting to you as well. And just as we go through these, now obviously Rangers had an early chance, they hit the bar, and then as you've just said, a mistake that leads to a corner, you concede. But what goes through your mind at that point? Because I heard your team talk that Motherwell, the social media team, put out on Instagram, I believe it was, and you were talking about, whatever happens in this game, it's not going to define your season. But at least this gives you an opportunity to kind of show what you're all about and what you want to try and do this season. And it felt, even despite the setback, like your team really listened to those words and really stuck with that throughout this game.
I think I think real bravery is shown when there's most at stake. Otherwise, it's not real bravery. And I think, we got a goal against us. We did that. We also got that against us against Hertha the other last week, and we were able to get back into the game and find momentum and just find ourselves really fast. I think that's what it's all about. No matter how you concede goals or how you make mistakes within your style of play, it's about just shaking it off and then go again. Because I don't think any team, no matter what style of play they play flawless games. We're all hoping to do it. Eventually, we're all looking for perfection, but we know there are so many situations within a football game, and there are so many mistakes, and you just need to be ready to enter the next situation with a clear mind and a positive mind and optimism. And that's what we try to implement with the group. And I think they've been fantastic in that. And second half, I think we saw the reward. If we'd started doing something different from what we wanted to do and play more safe and just playing long balls towards the Rangers, and I think we would have had a very hard time in getting something away from the game.
You mentioned the defender as well. Sorry, I'm just saying, I think a defender or a player in general as well, if the manager's giving you that confidence that you're not scared to make mistakes, it's all about, okay, right, that one's gone, it happened, to not have that fear for the next time. And I think you've seen that with your side. But yes, you're going to make mistakes playing from the back or whatever, but when it comes next time, you've got a clear picture in your mind to then go and do what's required of you. So I thought you've seen that really well in that game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you're trying to analyze teams who are very brave and have a very fluent, play a very fluent game on the ball and who are very dynamic, what you see is that everyone wants the ball all the time. Like they're not hiding, and they are early, and their body language is clear, and it gives the guy on the ball, when he receives the ball, he already has 2 or 3 options all the time. So it's a lot easier for him to pass the ball on. And that makes him want the ball, because he knows he's always got solutions, compared to a team that are trying to, but not really. They don't really want the ball. Then eventually one of the players will run out of options, and then they will try to hide a little bit, or they won't really get out of the shadow. The body language will be not clear enough, and then you end up in somewhere in between. And I think that's the worst place you can be as a football team and as a manager, where you say you want to do something, but you don't really want to do it. And it's the easiest place to land as a manager, because there's so many expectations, there's so many or so little patience in general in football, in terms of getting through a period of there's a little bit more mistakes than there's success. And in that aspect, I think we've been quite lucky with the progress we've made so fast, and I didn't expect that. And sometimes it is, or often it's a little bit easier in smaller clubs where there's not a huge external pressure from day one, which affects the whole club and the whole organization within. And that's that's the process I think Rangers is in right now, where they're also changing a lot. And I'm very, very convinced that the next time we play them, it's going to be a lot harder game because they have grown. But it's a massive club with a lot of expectation, with a lot less patience in terms of getting to where they want to be. But I'm very confident they will get there because they have a very bright and intelligent manager who knows exactly how to get them there.
Jens, I wanted to say, hearing somebody talk like that, I think it's as a football person, it's perfect to hear, because I couldn't agree more in terms of, I genuinely believe every footballer wants to play good football, regardless of whether you're a centre half who just likes to head the ball. But the key is, exactly as you explained, that you make it comfortable for them to have the ball with many options and easy passes. And it's far too easy for players when they're not comfortable to just stand beside the opponent and make it look like, I want the ball, but I don't really want the ball. And then everything breaks down. So I think I absolutely love seeing the style of football. Long may it continue. The one thing I wanted to ask you is, there's obviously been a number of players that have been brought in the summer. How key were you to identifying these guys that you would know would be adaptable and perfect for the style that you're wanting to play?
Yeah, obviously, Lucas Fadinger, who was brought in by the former manager, and I didn't really know much about him before he arrived, other than he was an attacking midfielder / inverted winger, and that's where he actually started, from that left side of the midfield, tucking in from there. And then with Lennon being out a little bit in the preseason, then we tested him in midfield. I think he's adapted fantastically in there. So that was a good signing, but I had nothing to do with that. But it has worked really well. And then obviously Eli Just and Ibrahim Said are players I know from Denmark. One of them I've worked with, and I knew he would fit in perfectly in the way we want to play. He's still got, I think, a lot more to show, and so has Said, who's not played that much football the last 6 months. So he's still lacking a little bit of sharpness and fitness. And then Elliot Watt, obviously people know him from his time at St. Johnston, and Nick Dawes, our head of recruitment. He's worked with him before, so he knew, and he's been on the radar for a while for our club. And after being brought up to speed on what type of player he is, I was quickly convinced that he would fit in perfectly. So it was a key signing as well. Then what else have we got? We have
Jordan McGee's in as well, and
Jordan McGee. That was a long time ago.
Yeah,
I think that was actually maybe the manager before Wimmer who signed him. And I haven't seen him that much because he was unfortunate to get injured very early in the preseason. But what I've seen so far is that he's a top guy, and he's a very diverse player who can play a lot of different positions. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of joy out of him when he gets back to full fitness, because we also need players with experience and who can play different positions. And I think in general, we're more identifying the role within the system, and then we try to find players that suit that role. And I will use my network as good as I can, which has opened up some doors in Denmark and in Scandinavia, and then we are using the network we obviously have here and in England, where we have good connections.
I can't believe he's forgotten the goal scorer from Saturday, Longolo.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that was I can't remember all of them, but he's been a fantastic since we brought him in. Yeah. And he was also a player we identified that we want players, that we want attacking fullbacks who are involved and who are solid defensively, who can deal with 1-against-1 situations defensively, who can defend far post when they have to, close to their own goal, like Johnny Kutrumbas did in a very deciding moment yesterday, where he was man marking his
brilliant tackle
in the Sitchak box. while we want them at the same time to be involved in our final third attacks. And we see the goal, and we've scored more goals where both fullbacks have been involved. The game against Hertha, there's a cross to far post where Johnny Kotromos has a finish that's saved by the keeper. It drops at the feet of Stamatolopoulos, and he puts it in. And Saturday it's Longello who drives the ball into the box. It ricochets, it ends at the feet of the other fullback who has a shot, and it ends back at the other fullback again, and he puts it in. And we saw some really interesting qualities at Manny, and really pleased that he's up there now.
You can't remember everyone, of course, and I know I'm just looking at your summer ins and outs. And Esiosa Sula, I think it is, the youngster is in from West Brom. I'm sure he'll get a chance at some point. But look, I promised you about 15 minutes tonight, and here we are, just past that. So just before you go, look, is there any update in Lennon Miller? Because everyone's assuming eventually the right bid will come in, and you'll be able to move on as a football club. And also, just as part of that question, do you already know, Jens, what you're going to get from that transfer, if you like, and how it's going to affect your transfer plans moving forward in summer once Lennon does move on?
Yeah. First of all, as I stated, I think last week in a press conference, there has been bids for Lennon, and right now there are negotiations going on. At the same time, he is back in training now, which is very positive. He was in full training today, and he looked as good as ever. We have a game on Saturday, and if nothing has been finalized with the negotiation, then he will be ready to join us for the St. Mirren game, and hopefully get some minutes that will help us. And that's basically what the news is about him right now.
If he does go, though, if he does go, I assume there's already a plan in place to either spend some of that money or at least increase the budget.
Look, when we get money in from a player, and a substantial amount of money, then obviously the club has some long-term plans for how to spend some of that money, so we reap the benefits over time, which is I think the healthy way to do it, instead of blowing all the way in one player. That's not the way we do business at Motherwell. We think long-term all the time, and then we also think, okay, because it's a top player leaving us, if that happens, and then or when that day comes where he's not here, we're losing a top player, and obviously that leaves a gap that we have to fill within the squad. We'll try and do that with some of the money, of course, but I think most of it will be used long term for the club, and I think that's the right way to run a football club at all sizes, basically, to make us grow long term, so we can get the next Lennon Miller ready as soon as possible, and then obviously strengthen where we are now. We have already in this summer, regardless of Lennon Miller's case, invested in small areas where we know that we have to improve as a football club, resources within the staff, just a lot of small things that all combined will make us bigger, will make the big difference.
It's all in the details, Jens. Tremendous. Listen, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Really, really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll speak to you again soon in the coming weeks. And before that, all the very best in the games to come, which is what St. Mirren, St. Johnstone, Hearts, some tough fixtures ahead. But all the very best. We wish you the best of luck, Jens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you. Right, Al, we've discussed so much.
Tell you what, talk some sense.
Yeah,
talk some sense. I like listening.
Really impressive, actually, isn't he?
And see what he's talking about, when you're playing a certain style of football and you're trying to get people in areas that are brave, who want the ball. I'm sure we'll have some clips of different teams trying to do it, and they're not capable of doing it at this moment in time the way they do. So no, he talks a lot of sense.
He does. And by the way, Motherwell had so many other chances in the game. I'm not sure we've even got time to get them in now.
Let's move on then. Next.
Well, listen, do you want to move on? Because I want to talk to you about Rangers. And you've seen them a few times now in the early parts of the season.
Yeah.
They did so well to get through against Panathinaikos. Of course they did. But it was a tough watch at times because they conceded so many opportunities. So we'll come back to the Motherwell game in a moment. But
Alan, is Alan's Wi-Fi frozen? Is he gone? Alan, you still there?
I've been wondering for a while. I've been wondering for a while if that's the case. But listen, Al, if you're a fullback, right, in this current team, what would you be thinking? Because they take some chances defensively.
I do. Look, if I'm a fullback and I'm looking at Max Erens for an example, I don't think that's his position. It's there for everybody to see. He's always coming inside on his right foot, which, look, I've had a season where I've had to play that position. It is difficult, especially when you're trying to play a certain style. The balance for me at the back's off in terms of it's 4 right footers, and I just don't think it's working at this moment in time. Tavernier looks as if he's playing more inside. He's not being asked to bomb up and down, which probably suits him a little bit better in terms of his age and his ability on the ball. But I just think in terms of where they're at right now, they're off it. I mean, it's there for everybody to see. The be-all and end-all was get through the Panathinaikos game. They'd done that. By hook or by crook, they'd done it. It wasn't great to watch. And they did struggle in both first halves of those games. And then the Motherwell one, they were okay in the first half. I mean, that's about it. And then for the manager to come out and question the likes of mentality, egos, I mean, that's a worrying sign. And I've actually said it last season about mentality because we spoke about they got up for the Celtic games. European games at times weren't a problem. It was everything else. So maybe he's come in, identified there's a real problem there, and he's going to have to shake it out of them somehow because they've got a long way to go if they're really going to take the next level and try and challenge for the league.
Yeah, but I have seen quite a few of the fans, when you go online, saying a few things about Russell Martin's post-match comments. Rangers clearly nowhere near good enough in the second half against Motherwell. That's obvious. But what about his own role in that as well? Some of the substitutes, the fact that Raskan's playing out of position as well, doesn't look particularly happy in that kind of new role to get Rothwell in the centre. Yep. Diamandi's out the other side. As you say, there's maybe not enough balance defensively, but taking off the whole midfield and finishing the game with the players they had on, to an extent, Al, were they not asking for trouble?
Oh, possibly. I mean, well, he name-checked Lyle Cameron for coming on and doing well and running about and being aggressive, and you could see him tracking back. Of course, it's a risk to take off your main 3 at that moment in time. Did he have one eye midweek, which I don't think he should, because the most important game is the one that you're playing. But you're right, Rothwell's coming in, he's kind of anchoring that midfield. You get your 2 that he wants probably more advanced and higher up. Does it really suit Raskin to be there? I'm not so sure. Time will tell.
Is he not the best player?
For me, yes. I think we've seen the best of him at the end of last season when he was getting on the ball, he was dictating play, he was always trying to pass forward, trying to create and move the ball, move the team in the right direction. Look, this isn't going to happen overnight. And we say this all the time, that X manager needs time. It's a different style. It's this and that. At Rangers, you don't get it. Celtic, you don't get it. But it's not going to happen overnight. He's coming in with his own identity. It's not working at this moment in time. Whether he looks at the squad and thinks, I don't have the actual players. Erens isn't going to play at left back all season. No. So that needs to be addressed. Yilmaz is leaving. Jeffrey, I mean, does he not fancy him or whatever? I don't know. But there's certain areas of the pitch that he needs to look at. I mean, Ant-Man's just come in for, 4 or 5 million. He can play on that right-hand side. Gasserman on the other side. As you rightly said before, the Avengers are assembling, hopefully. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, they're a long way off it. Yeah, they're a long way off it.
And the fans also, I think also the fans are furious. And I say there's an awful lot on social media. This show is on social media, YouTube and X. So you see a lot of comments coming through. But I think, calling out some of the players not running around enough. And then he obviously wants to stick with Kieran Bowie.
It's there to see, Darrell. I mean, you can look at the footage and we can see it.
Well, yeah, but Kieran Dowell was still on and he was losing his man a few times and looked like a bit of a defensive liability, but he finishes 90 minutes. There was a lot of talk of moving him on. So I think the fans are slightly concerned that some players like that are seemingly getting more game time than they expected, and others are being moved out of position, the players that they could rely on last season. So I think that's why they're concerned. But look, the squad is being restructured, as you say. New signings are arriving. I guess the silver lining is the team might look very different in a few weeks, Al. But you say it doesn't happen overnight always. Well, it kind of needs to an extent, because Victoria Pilsen's next. And they've got a great opportunity, because that's not a bad draw at all. And then today, if they were to get through against Victoria Pilsen, Salzburg or Club Brugge, a step up, but also they avoided Benfica or Nice. If you talked to us at the very beginning of the summer about potential runs to get into the Champions League, you'd have taken that draw all day long. So that's a huge opportunity, and it needs to happen quickly as a result, surely.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Rangers to be back in the Champions League, that's what they're striving for. That's where they want to get to. The thing with that is, new manager comes in, turnover of players, you need to hit the ground running, and that's just the way it is. And yes, they've got a good opportunity, but it's not going to be easy. And the form and the place that they are sitting right now, it's going to be difficult. Everybody's going to have to buy into what the manager wants. And I just think...
The fans too, perhaps.
See, when you look at the people that he's bringing in, the players that are already there, he's identified a style that he wants to play. Can those players do that? He's talking about tracking runners, being brave on the ball, getting forward, dominating, all those sort of things. Is the players there for him to do it?
But a lot of those things are the basics. You know,
no, I totally agree.
To go back to what Jens was talking about, you know, you have an identity or you've got a game plan. An identity is something you constantly do. Game plan is something that you're going to change from game to game. But then you've got the basics. And what Russell Martin's talking about there is nothing to do with, you know, an identity in a team. It's the basics, which is then, as he said, the mentality. And to change that, you need to change the core of the team, the squad, because we all know that you can carry certain players who might not be the strongest, you know, mentally, but if the core's strong, they'll get brought along with it. On the other flip side of that is if the core's weak, they'll just disappear. And the problem at Rangers is quite clearly that strong core doesn't exist. And I get the whole thing about the team will look very different in a few weeks. Granted, it may well, but there's still understandably questions being asked about, right, why are you playing Max Erens left back when he can't play left back? Why are you playing Kieran Bowie right wing when he can't play right wing? Why are you playing Danilo centre forward when he doesn't look fit? You know, these are valid questions because the here and now is that I don't think the performance against Panathinaikos was any different really from the performance against Motherwell. And I appreciate it's a different environment, going away into Athens and the heat and everything like that, and going to Fir Park where there's an expectation that you should be going and winning all the time. I get that. But when you actually take a step back and you look at those two performances, I don't see much different from either. The difference was that Russell Martin said he was so proud of his players against Panathinaikos, yet against Motherwell, he was talking about it was completely unacceptable. And that to me feels a little bit like you're playing to the galleries.
Well, he didn't hold back, that's for sure. I can't wait for that game at the weekend, of course. First league home game of the season, live in Premier Sports 1, Saturday, 5:15. Rangers against Dundee. You guys will be there. Tony Docherty is on the show as well. So plenty more Rangers chat to come this weekend. We've got to move on. By the way, there's no chance we're making this a 45-minute show tonight, Michael. I can tell you that right now. Let's get on to the next game then. Next set of highlights. Kilmarnock against Livingston. Michael, I know you watched a lot of the league games closely over the weekend. Great start for Stuart Kettlewell and Killie, but a really good response from Livy in this match.
Yeah, it was. I mean, look, the way I would sum this up was that Livy were the architects of their own downfall in the first half in particular. Credit to Killie because they identified that they were going to get right up on top of Livy, who were trying to play out, but just weren't really at it. They weren't on it well enough. There were too many, you know, simple mistakes that Killie were right up on top of them. They capitalised on it. So, you know, credit to Killie. They had to nailed down, really aggressive, got themselves 2 goals in front. This is a shocker from Prior in the Livy goals, mind you. But David Martindale, half-time, recognised, you know, things needed to change. And they came storming right back into it in the second half. And, you know, at one stage, you think to yourself, they could maybe go on and sneak this. But I think 2-2 in the end probably...
Mikey, the red card obviously helps. And the decision was quite a big talking point. Al, I don't know what you think of this, but just watching this live or watching it, if you like, in full speed, your head looks as if he impedes the defender first. So if you're in VAR and you're watching that, surely do you not have to take the first instant here, if you like, into consideration before you see the clear pull at the end and then give a red card? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I do feel for Stanger there. I do think Muirhead's got his hand like round his neck and he is tugging him a little bit. And then it continues on in, and you can see quite clearly the big tug. He's not going for the ball, penalty and red card. So I do feel for him, but maybe they looked at it and thought it wasn't enough. They were kind of leaning into each other. I'm not so sure. And then it was just so obvious with the pull that they've had to go and make that decision. I was interested to see what Michael thought of it, because I kind of felt for him a little bit for just before outside the box.
I mean, look, the penalty kick wasn't given. It's VAR that have called the referee over. And I just think that it's extremely harsh. As soon as the referee's called over to have a look at it, you knew that he was going to give a penalty. Yeah. But I am firmly of the belief that Stanger is... I wouldn't even so much say that he's fouled. I just think, let the game play on. That the ball's in the goalkeeper's hands. Clearly, he's been impeded slightly. There's no question that he pulls Muirhead's jersey in the end. But I just think for him to get a penalty kick and then has to be sent off because he's not challenged for the ball, he's pulled his jersey, I just think was incredibly harsh.
Yeah, agreed. And the Kilmarnock fans must have been thinking, "Oh, here we go again."
Here we go again.
Last season, and the very first league game of the season, when they're in a commanding position, that happens. I don't know if Muirhead doesn't pull him back, though. Stanger probably doesn't have to do the tug at the end. So I don't know. I just don't want to go on VAR rants all season. So please tell me it's going to be better.
Darrell, we had that at the VAR meeting with Willie Collin with Michael. I was sitting next to him. It was good fun.
Did he acknowledge the rants?
No, there was one or two rants, shall I say, from Michael.
So listen, hopefully the points were made, and hopefully it'll get better, because I didn't think that was a great decision at the weekend, but maybe it's one that could go either way. Onwards, Falkirk, Dundee United. I think we all believe, Al, that having Falkirk and John McGlynn, the way Falkirk play, a great addition back into the top flight, and the way they've got promoted the last couple of times has been outstanding. The football, they've stuck with their principles, they've added a few more players to their core this season. This is a good start for them, isn't it? A 2-2 draw against Dundee United, when they showed, I think, in large parts, what they're all about.
Yeah, it's a great story. I think we can all see that. But Dundee United had the game midweek. It was obviously difficult, and I just felt that Falkirk came out the traps really quickly. We've just seen the first goal, Sybil with a great run and pick out, and Waters gets his leg over the ball, and it's a good finish. But at the start, Falkirk get the Adams and McCann really high crosses into the box. They were really dangerous, but I also felt that Dundee United grew into the game, and you see that with the first goal. They're not scared to make runners go forward to get people on the ball, but Falkirk just never went away. See, for the neutral, what a game of football this was. I mean, Adams again does really well, good pick out, Spencer just a little layoff and a lovely little finish. And we've seen this all game. It was really end to end, both teams really desperate for 3 points, going for it. A great advert for the Scottish game and hopefully what's to come in the coming weeks. But I thought it was just overall just a brilliant game of football with lots of action. So fair play to both teams.
Yes,
that was a good finish. That was a great. I was just going to say that goal for me sums Falkirk up brilliantly. Quick attack, 2-3 passes, and then the composure at the end. Brad Spencer could easily put his laces through that. Instead, he just cushions it right into Dylan Tate's path. I thought it was a great goal.
This is probably where Falkirk have to kind of wise up a little bit, probably defensively. I think going forward is not an issue. We know how they want to play, but I think at this level you will be punished from teams, whether you're home or away. And I just think defensively there was a couple of situations where they could probably prevent it if they're all switched on. But I'm sure they'll learn. They'll watch this back and they'll learn from it.
Yeah, and they won't change the way they're playing either, just as we were saying about Motherwell earlier on in the programme. No, absolutely should.
They don't have to change. It's just, the aspects of the defending that we're talking about doesn't impact, how they look to play in possession. It's just, I think to a certain degree, it's just an element of concentration sometimes as well, and slight nuances in the defensive setup. Hutton will tell you, for example, as an attacking fullback, Keelan Adams, I think, he's got a great future ahead of him. But there's a few occasions where positionally he just needs to get himself a couple of yards either way. Cutting off the inside pass as a fullback is a must. You can't allow that ball to get played inside because you're out the game. You're dead at that point. But I was going to say about Jim Goodwin and Dundee United, that was a far better performance there. The two European ties were tough. They were to watch. They were nervy. They weren't fluent at all. They flipped a back four predominantly yesterday, and I thought they looked far more comfortable in large spells. And hopefully they can build a bit of confidence from that going into the Rapid Vienna game, which is hugely important for Scottish football, that we get Dundee United and Hibs through to the next qualifier.
No doubt about that at all. It'll be interesting to see how Dundee United cope with all the changes again this season. Another squad overhaul, if you like. I think it's 12 signings in so far. And can anyone replace Sam Dalby in his goals? We'll find out. But you're right, Rapid Vienna next. Not an easy tie, but you never know. If they play at their best, they're very capable. And then the draw today, if they were to get through that, AIK Stockholm or FC Győr would be next. That would stand in the way of the Conference League, which of all the teams they could have got, I think was actually favourable. So fingers crossed for this coming week, and let's see if Dundee United can progress again. And as you say, Hibs as well in that draw today. We'll look at Dundee Hibs now. Hibs, Partizan Belgrade next after the late heartbreak against Midtjylland. If they can find a way against Partizan Belgrade, it's AEK Larnaca or Legia Warsaw would come next. And obviously Legia Warsaw, you'd imagine, would be the favourites in the other tie. But again, could have been a lot worse, that draw. So fingers crossed for all our European representatives. Let's talk Hibs. Dundee 1, Hibs 2 at the weekend. Kieran Bowie, if you remember, we had Malky Mackay on at the end of last season on this show, Michael, and he was singing the praises of Kieran Bowie coming back from injury. Getting a Scotland call-up will only have helped his confidence. My word, he's taken it into this season.
He's outstanding. I mean, I was saying in the summer when the Scotland games were on that I genuinely believe if this boy keeps himself fit and starts the season well, he should be starting for Scotland in the qualifiers. That's my view. I honestly think he's a striker who's got a bit of everything. He's predominantly left-footed, but he can finish with both. He's good in the air. He's a physical, absolute pest. He batters defenders about, and he's got good movement. We were talking obviously endlessly last season about Hibs at Dens Park when it just fell apart and they lost 4-1.
Yeah.
And I think this game actually is the first game of the season, just epitomises perfectly the turnaround in Hibs' fortune in the space of 8-9 months. Going into this game, you're expecting them to win it. And the performance they put in actually showed that. You could see the belief and the confidence in them. Not great defending from Iredale, which was key for Dundee because they're 2-0 down and you actually worried for them at that point. You're thinking, this could be really bad. But they managed to get that goal back within, I think it was 3 or 4 minutes. And it just managed to settle them down a bit. But Hibs never really looked in danger of not picking up 3 points in this game. And that man there, Kieran Bowie, for me, he's Hibs number 9 this season. And for me, he should be Scotland's number 9 as well.
And there you go. It's not me, by the way, but a comment coming in there. Bowie works his socks. Absolute gem of a player. Bright future ahead. Michael definitely agrees with that. Look, obviously, Hibs seem to have done some good transfer business. Josh Mulligan coming into the club as well, and maybe still more to come. Grant Hanley, who Michael gave a tour around Edinburgh to the other day.
As well.
So that one's going to be done any moment now. I'm sure Michael can give us the big exclusive in a moment. But just on Dundee, I'll just briefly on them, because it's not been a great start to the season at all. You look
worry
at
for them
so far. Stephen Presley ahead of the game. He's so honest, Elvis, right? And we all really like him, and we all got on really well with him. He's so honest, but ahead of the game, you're starting a league campaign. You want to get the fans, I guess, enthusiastic and right behind you. And I'm just looking at some of the comments that he actually said right before the match, within an hour of kickoff. He said, we're still 6 players away from getting our squad together. And I'm not saying that necessarily feeds back to the dressing room ahead of the game. Unlikely that it would. But if you're a Dundee fan and you also don't see Simon Murray in the starting 11 because he's got an injury, there's a lot of maybe alarm bells going off in your head right now.
Yeah, well, there was alarm bells going off in my head when I seen them obviously exiting the cup early doors. I think the alarm bells were ringing. I don't think he was the first choice for the fans. I'm still kind of shocked, me personally, about the Tony Dock situation, if I'm being totally honest, and what happened there. They've lost a lot of experience, a lot of players that could go and be match winners and make something happen. They've not quite replaced as of yet. Simon Murray's out injured. Again, he's an outlet. He's a pest. He doesn't stop running. He was a massive miss, but they were playing at home, and they were on a low defensive block and they just pretty much sat there. I don't think they were good in possession. They just basically played to try not get beat. And I think that's a worry. And some of Stephen Presley's comments would make me even worse. I think he said they weren't quite ready yet. They need 6 players. That just doesn't sound a good situation for anybody really at the club.
Well, and again, more conversation about Dundee this coming weekend live in Premier Sports, obviously. And we'll keep moving forward, Michael. Celtic against St Mirren. Watching back at the end of last season, I'm not sure anyone thought this would be a straightforward contest, but Celtic at home, you never know when they get into their strides. But St Mirren, so well organised again, just like last season, even with some new players coming into the system, Michael. In the end, though, Celtic just found a way to break them down.
I mean, that pretty much sums it up. Yeah, Nygren there with the strike that George shifts onto the crossbar and then the post, the whole lot. It was, Celtic. By no means could you say the performance was bad, because it wasn't. But you're just looking at it and you just, when you see the sort of edge just not being quite there, and it was almost like the perfect storm. You're then coming up against one of, if not the most difficult team in the league to break down, and you're starting to really, think, are Celtic missing that 2 or 3 players that give them the X factor? And I think it's a bit of that combination of one of the most difficult teams to break down, and yes, they probably are a few players short. I think that.
How many, Michael?
Well, I think, I thought Nygren looked really nice in the midfield. I've got to be honest, I thought looked a really cultured player. You can see him settling into that team really nicely. But then you're looking at the front line, and obviously with Jota being out, I just think that they need at
couldn't
least,
be away.
Yeah, well, I think they need probably 2 wingers and a striker now, if they're going to get to the levels that they were
obviously
at.
centre-backs coming in from Man City on loan initially, yeah.
Yep, but see, that goal there just sums up how Celtic will constantly probe and eventually break down. Mark O'Hara, you're talking about a yard. But I'm not blaming him, because mentally and physically shattered, and 99 times out of 100 you maybe just get away with it anyway. But if he's a yard further over, he doesn't need to be tucked over as much as he was. And if he's a yard further over, when that ball gets shifted to McGowan, he's able to get right out in front of Luke McCowan and get the block, rather than just being almost there. And then
Michael, you'd have been there as a player. You would have been there as a player, just like I would. Like, you work ever so hard and tirelessly, and they just move you about. They just wear you down. They just don't give up. They're constantly moving the ball. You're shifting, and you can be as organised as St Mirren are, and I thought they were excellent at it, especially defensively. But when you're constantly just thinking and moving, it becomes difficult, and they're just waiting for that. They're just waiting for that little gap, that little bit of space to go and hurt you, and they just do it the whole game. They're relentless in what they do. They just wear you down.
Obviously, the Celtic fans want more, right, from the board. They want more money spent in this window, because there's money in the bank, Michael.
So does Brendan Rodgers, Darrell.
And I was just going to say, his comments, I think, very much a warning sign. If you want me to stay at the club, match my ambition. I think he said it in the past, and it didn't particularly end well. He left the football club. So we'll see if there's a response now. I think the really good news, the big news today from Celtic's point of view, is that Champions League qualifying draw is very favourable. Slovan Bratislava, who we saw Celtic put to the sword last season, or Kairat Almaty. More likely to be Slovan Bratislava. You never know. I know Kairat Almaty, Kazakhstan, is a long old trip, but in many ways it doesn't matter, because if you get the guaranteed £40 million into the club, you would expect all of a sudden an awful lot of transfer business could be done and probably should be done. Michael, would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, regardless of, just forget about the Champions League thing for a moment, because I think Celtic are, they're at a bit of a crossroads here. That you have an elite top-level manager here, right? And you see how far they pushed Bayern Munich last season. Now, are you wanting or accepting that that's just a one-off incident? Or are you wanting to genuinely get a team and a manager together that can look to go into the knockout stage of the Champions League and progress regularly. Because one of the key components of that, if not the most important component, is the manager. And you have him. And to keep him, you have to match the ambitions. And when you look at Celtic at the moment, the squad is weaker than it was last season for a number of reasons, obviously, because Kyogo went in January, but you brought in Jota, which I thought was great business. But Jota's injured. Kuhn's been sold. And I'll be honest, I wasn't the biggest Kuhn fan, as you may well have realised.
I don't remember that. Is that right?
But the point remains that you've sold and made good money on him, and the expectation was that you would sign a big main striker. And they've not done that yet. And I think to just get to the level where it would be comparable with what you had last season, Schlupp's gone as well, as Greg Taylor. Now, obviously, Kieran Tierney comes in, and that's top class. But where's the backup? And I just think that when you look at the whole squad, it's not as balanced and as strong as it was at periods last season. And I think they've got a fair bit of work to do to get to that level, to then make the manager feel like, right, there is a project here that I can still be part of. And eventually what you're looking at is ultimately getting them to sign a new deal to stay longer.
Yeah. Because these questions are just going to circle all season. Yeah. If that's the case, if there's no talks or he's not signing a new deal or whatever, it's just going to come up week after week after week. But I'm with you, Michael. I still think they're strong enough to go and win the league, potentially. I think they will make signs, but it's all about the Champions League and the new format. I mean, you can go, as we've seen what they've done, you can go into the kind of later rounds if you have those little players that are going to come in and make a big difference within your squad. So I hear what he says, and he wants people into match his ambition. So whether it happens or not, we need to wait and see.
Let's see. Darrell, just last one very quickly, Michael, please.
Yeah, is that when you look at, when you're talking about spending, and I've heard a lot of folk talking about, they spent a fair few quid last summer, Engels, Ida, and by the way, that's fair enough. But what you need to actually look at and appreciate as well is the money they make from selling. So it's actually not a massive net spend. You sell Matt O'Reilly, you make a fortune, and then you're spending. Okay, but it's not like they're actually dipping into the reserves.
No,
they still
there's a surplus.
And they are making good money.
Michael, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens, okay, in the rest of the transfer window, because we have to move on, because there's one final game, obviously, still to come tonight, and it's a good one as well. Hearts up against Aberdeen, and there's been so much comments coming in tonight as well. I'm just looking at one from Ullapool Heart, sent a question in to you, Michael, I assume, on thoughts here. It is thoughts on Tony Bloom's statement last night. He's personally delighted, the Hearts fan there. I mean, if anyone hasn't seen these, Tony Bloom was talking at an event for the Foundation of Hearts Pledgers, question and answer event, and he did not hold back. Among many comments, he said it's really important for Scottish football for it not to be just one or two club show. It's not going to be from now on. I can assure everyone of that. I'll be very disappointed if in the next 10 years we don't at least win one league title.
Wow, a lot of pressure here.
He also said he thinks there's a right good chance of coming second this season. There's another comment coming in from Ian Brew, Iniesta, Tony Bloom Revolution to win the league at first time of asking, taking advantage of a weeker Celtic and Rangers.
Expectations going through the roof.
And that's a huge ask, obviously, right? Ian Brew there. That's a huge ask. But Michael, the Hearts fans are excited. And why not? Why not?
And look, forget about Hearts fans for a moment as well. And I'm being serious here. You look at the way neutrals felt when Aberdeen went on an unbelievable run at the start of the last season. It is exactly what is needed. I could not agree more with what Tony Bloom's saying. That greater competition breeds greater interest, and it's brilliant to hear. And you're talking about a guy who has a bit of a track record with clubs that he is involved with. Obviously, the main obvious one is Union Saint-Gilloise. He's done brilliant with his connection with Como as well. Good money that's been made on players that have been brought in and sold for big money. And for him to come out and talk about looking to win at least one title in the next decade, I think that is absolute music to the ears of all neutrals in Scottish football.
Are you neutral here then? Aye.
I'm a Scottish football fan.
Right, okay, just make sure. No, but
he was dancing around that living room today.
I bet it was. I like what he's saying. I think it's brilliant to see Motherwell, the way they're playing football, Falkirk back in the league, Dundee United, you've still got Hearts Aberdeen tonight. See the thought of having all those games and you don't really know which way it's going to land. It's going to be so competitive. It's only good for Scotland and Scotland moving forward. But well, he's building up expectations like nobody's business. So let's just see how they go on the night.
Michael is, Tony Bloom certainly is. Listen, just before we finish, just to remind you,
Our Hearts going to win the league. Our Hearts going to win the league before Rangers win a league.
No.
Okay. Listen, we're still doing this show in a decade. We'll all be doing well anyway. Right? We can judge the Tony Bloom comments then. Listen, just before we go, loads of good football coming in Premier Sports, as always, including, as we showed you earlier on, big game from Ibrox, first home game in the league in charge for Russell Martin, Rangers against Dundee. Tony Docherty also on the broadcast. 5:15 in Premier Sports 1. Hopefully we'll have Falkirk against Hibs as well coming up soon. It depends on Hibs in Europe. So I say hopefully, but we also want Hibs to progress. So that fixture's obviously TBC at the moment, but there's a Dundee derby in the horizon, the 31st of August. Into September, we'll definitely see Hibs against Dundee United. You've also got the Premier Sports Cup, the next round. That's the 15th and 16th of August. Celtic, Falkirk and Rangers, Alloa. Every other game available on the Premier Sports Player as well that weekend. 16th of August, we've got 4 live games on the Player and 2 on Sunday, the 17th of August. You'll see St Mirren Hearts and Kilmarnock Dundee United, many other games as well in the Premier Sports Player. So some brilliant fixtures to come. We're really looking forward to all of that. But for now, so much for 45 minutes. The first show, Michael, you really got your wish. We nearly made it to an hour. Guys, really good to see you again. Alan, Michael, thank you very much. We'll see you next week on The Social Club.
Good first show.
Good. To be fair, Jens was actually